In the world of sports movies, two stand out as arguably the greatest ever to be produced: Hoosiers and Rudy. The man who's responsible for both of them, screenwriter and producer Angelo Pizzo. A native of Bloomington, Indiana, Pizzo began his television and film career with Warner Brothers TV in the Story Development Group before moving to Time Life Films, where he served as vice president of feature film productions. It was his writing ability, though, that brought Pizzo 2 Academy Award nominations, as he told the story of a small-town Indiana high school basketball team winning its state title. Pizzo was captivated by the story of the 1954 Milan High School basketball team, as was David Anspar, Indiana University fraternity brother, who shared his passion for filmmaking and Hoosier hysteria. Pizzo and Anspar dreamed of one day making a movie about that historical game. It all came together 32 years after Milan's state championship with the movie Hoosiers. Loosely based on the Milan story, but with the same Hollywood ending, it was filmed in the same historic building where it all happened, Hinkle Fieldhouse. Hoosiers was later named the greatest sports movie ever by ESPN and USA Today. Pizzo followed up Hoosiers with another beloved sports movie about a young man with dreams of playing football at the University of Notre Dame. The wannabe athlete Daniel Rudy Rudiger faced a host of challenges, but his dream was to become a reality by virtue of conviction and perseverance. He eventually made it onto the playing field after a tear-filled climb to the top. In 2013, Pizzo was inducted into the Indiana High School Basketball Hall of Fame. And in 2014, we can now say he's an inductee into the National Italian-American Sports Hall of Fame.
All right. And what a treat we have tonight to present the induction medal. Please welcome boxing legend, one of my idols, and a great, great friend and supporter of the Hall, Ray Boom Boom Mancini. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Angelo Pizzo.
Thank you, Mike. We were talking last night, Mike and I, about the two Z's at the end of our name. And one of the things I feel so proud about that my father insisted in not softening like a lot of Americans have done with their. So it is Pizzo, not Pizzo. Speaking of two Z's at the end, I would like to thank George for this wonderful event and, of course, the great hall. I'd never seen it before last night, and I was so blown away. It's an amazing place. You've all done such a great job, and this event is very special. And I have to give a special shout out and thanks to Shannon O'Meara and Ron Onesti last night, who did a great job at moderating. I certainly would not be here, almost literally and figuratively, metaphorically, if it was not for my father. He is, and I don't mean just because of his name. He was my role model. He was my mentor. He was everything that I wanted to be. And this would have meant a lot to him. I knew. I knew this would be tough. So my grandfather, who's also Angelo Pizzo, came over to this country to work for the Pennsylvania Railroad and moved to Logansport in 1910 and fell in love through a picture of my grandmother. And he would go back every 2 years and get her pregnant and then come back, and with the goal of eventually bringing everybody back. And the last time he went back in 1920, he stayed there for a month and got my grandmother pregnant with my dad. So he was truly an Italian American. He was conceived in Sicily and born in America. And he represented, like Mike said something very interesting last night, and I think it caught the essence of my father. He was so proud to be an Italian, but he was equally as proud to be an American. And he was very ghettoized during the 20s, living in the Italian-American community of a very small one in Logansport. They had their own school. He didn't speak English until he was 10. But he turned out to be a very hardworking student. And my grandfather moved to Indianapolis because they had the best high school in the state there. Indianapolis Technical High School is also one of the biggest in the country. He ended up graduating as a valedictorian and a class of over 3,000 and earned a scholarship to the University of Chicago here. That's where he met my mother. And he got his medical degree. And I was born in Wilmette, not too far from here. He fell in love with Bloomington, Indiana, because he got an opportunity to be the first pathologist in the town. And he got to teach at the medical school. And teaching was very important to him and mattered a lot. He ended up being chief of staff of the hospital. He ended up founding a special MD, PhD program at Indiana. And he was all about serving community and his state and community at every level, whether it's family, whether it's church, whether it is his city, and ultimately his state. He was a 2-time state senator, and he was on the Bloomington City Council for 15 years, and he retired when he was 85 from the city council. So he's a pretty extraordinary man. He didn't really actually wasn't one of those fathers that sat down and said, son, here's life lessons. He didn't need to do that because he just lived it. But there were a couple times where I was struggling in my life, and I look back and think about I was in a very confused place right after college. I went to school thinking I wanted to be one person, and that would be a lawyer. And by the time I graduated, I said, I don't want to be a lawyer. I really have no passion, no desire, no interest in this. And so I kind of drifted for a year. And I had a talk with my dad, and it kind of changed the way I thought. And that was, he said, let me just say this about my own life. I have 2 loves, my family and my work. Nothing is a greater gift than for me to have a love of my profession. To get up every morning and go to my office and do the work I do is a joy. So find something you have passion in. Find something that you can really be excited about getting up every morning and going to work and doing. Money doesn't really matter if you don't have that. And he said, if you really truly have a passion in it, the money will come. But you cannot worry about that. And I said, well, there's only one thing I'm really passionate about, but I can't imagine how I can make a living at it, and that's movies. So we sat down and kind of strategized how to go about doing it, and I ended up going to grad school at USC and getting involved in the film business as an executive, and I worked as an executive for 6 years. And I became a little disenchanted because I was jealous of the people who did it. And I was home, and this was the second key thing that my dad said to me. I said, you know, I feel like I'm one step removed from the people. I'm in a support system. I help them. But the writers, the directors, the actors, they're the ones who really do it. And he said, why don't you do it? I said, I'm not good enough at any of those things. He said, well, it can't hurt to try. He said, what do you have a great story? And I said, well, yeah, the Milan High School, the state folk myth of Indiana is how that team won the state championship. And he said, why don't you try it? And I said, well, all right. So I tried it, and it worked out pretty good. Changed my life. Anyway, I'm going to have to, it's going to be hard for me to get through this next part. I have to tell you this. My father's still alive. He's 93, but he's not doing well. And he's suffering from dementia. And, but, you know, he recognizes me sometimes, and eventually he does. And I was there yesterday, and he kind of, driving up from Bloomington, and I told him what I said. I was having a conversation with my mom about the movie I just finished and so on and so forth. And my dad I don't think he was comprehending much of anything, but every once in a while his eyes would twinkle a little bit, and I said, Dad, I'm going to be honored by the Italian American Sports Hall of Fame. And he had the biggest smile on his face. It may have been the last gift I gave him. So thank you.